And I would like to remind everyone to turn off the cell phone over here. There's another one over there.
No, it's fine.
You know, that is beautiful.
You wanted
Yeah,
Why don't we look at the name?
I don't know how to tell you.
Knowing you as well as I do, Natalie, no matter what you want or you don't want, you will feel guilty about something. There's no question about that.
Right on.
Thank you.
I know where this funeral's going real fast.
Esoinai el heharim, me'ayin yavo Ezri. Ezri me'im Adonai oseh shemayim va'aretz. Al yitin lamot raglecha al yanum shomrecha. Hinei lo yanum velo yishan shomer Yisrael Adonai shomrecha. Adonai tzilcha al yad yaminecha. Yomam hashemesh lo yakeka. V'yareach balayla. Adonai yishmorcha mikol ra. Shmor et nafshecha. Adonai yishmor tzetcha v'wecha mi'ata v'yad olam. I will lift up mine eyes unto the mountains. What is the source of my help? My help comes from the Lord, maker of heaven and earth. God will not let your foot give way. The protector will not slumber. Behold, the guardian of Israel neither slumbers nor sleeps. God is your guardian. God is your protection at your right hand. The sun will not strike you by day nor the moon by night. The Lord will keep you from all evil. He will keep your soul. The Lord will guard your going out and your coming in, this time forth and forevermore. Eloheinu v'Elohei Avotenu, our God and God of all generations. Thou governest all things with infinite wisdom and mercy. You guidest the destinies of all of humankind. As a parent have you loved us and showered your blessings upon us. Therefore we shall not murmur even when sorrow befalls us, but with humility and unfaltering trust we shall accept your decrees. In joy and in sorrow alike we praise your goodness and acknowledge your justice. We remember that we are but strangers upon earth. Like a shadow, our life flees away. Help us, O God, so to walk in your sight. When the few years of our earthly pilgrimage are ended, we may be ready to meet our end with tranquil mind. To thee we look for comfort and strength. When one of our beloved is taken from us, the link is broken in the chain of love which binds us together. Though we walk in the valley of the shadow of death, we shall fear no evil. You are with us. Praised, O eternal our God, in all your dispensations. Sanctified be your name now and forevermore. So together, Steve wants to offer some words. You did. You told me you did.
I did.
Okay, so you're giving me a look like that.
You didn't know this?
Here. I need you here though, because of the Steve. Steve, yes, that's not true. And this way, you need the microphone. Yes,
Microphone.
please.
No, well, Lisa
Please,
can
just
do
do me a favor. Use the microphone and say whatever it is that you want to say.
Thank you very much I want to thank all of you very much for coming. And we got lucky with the sunshine and the warmth of the day. I don't know why it's dressed so warmly, Sue. It's absolutely beautiful. But it's kind of you to take time out of your day to join us and to join Natalie also. I've known Roselyn for more than 50 years. And Natalie and Roselyn had a challenging relationship, and yet it was a good relationship. Natalie would do a lot for Roselyn, especially in the early years. She tried to reach out to her, to help Roz, and frequently it was accepted. Then it was several years ago just before, and Natalie would do trips. She would take Roselyn. They did cruises, they did land trips. Roz would come here to Denver on occasions. But it was several years ago that just before she was leaving on a trip with Roselyn, that Natalie talked to Debbie. And they were talking about the upcoming trip and what she was planning to, where they were going, and a little bit about Roz. And Debbie provided insight to Roselyn's personality and who she was, and offered some suggestions and gave Natalie insight that she just hadn't had before. And what was interesting, and Natalie took that information that she gave Debbie and researched it and read a book about it. And it took Natalie's relationship with her sister to a totally higher new level. It's like a revelation. And after that, and many thanks to you, really, Natalie and Roz had a very good relationship, and a strong one. You know, I could probably count on one hand the number of friends that Roz had in her lifetime. And yet, Natalie was not only a sister, but after that communication and Natalie understood her thought processes, they were more than just sisters. They were very close and good friends. And Natalie took advantage of it by reaching out to Roz and trying to give her opportunities. Natalie would call her on a regular basis. Roselyn would call us on a regular basis. It truly was a wonderful relationship. And Natalie, I think, gave Roz some important good times in her life that I'm sure she remembered. I say that with a great deal of confidence because towards the end, when Roz was in the hospital, she during perhaps the last moments that she had, she was cognizant of who was there and what she was saying, whether it was at Kaiser in December or at Ida's care place home in January. I truly believe Roselyn heard Natalie say, "I love you." She said it back. So Natalie reached out and did a lot for her sister, and truly am very, very appreciative, Natalie, of all that you've done for her, as well as what you've done for your own family. It's been very special, and I know that Roselyn would say the same thing if she were here now. So finally, Roselyn's challenging life is behind her. The illness that was painful, that's behind her, and behind her, and hopefully she'll have a chance to rest in peace.
There is perhaps no piece of literature that is used more often at moments like this than the words of the 23rd Psalm. And it's understandable why that is, because it says, "Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death." And most of us think that that's the reason that it's used, but I learned a long time ago from one of my professors that King David, who is the probable author of the book of Psalms, had something else in mind, and I just want to share that. When he said, "Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death," he was trying to say to mourners, don't get stuck in the valley of the shadow of death. Don't get stuck in that dark place. Walk through it, because there are always ways in which you as a mourner can continue to live. And that's what's appropriate, I think, about using it. So I'm going to read it in Hebrew, and if you'd like to say it with me in English, please feel free to do so. Adonai Rovi lo exor bino desha yarbitseni al me menuchochin alein. Nafshi shovev yancheni b'maglei tzedek leman shemo. Gam ki elech b'geit samavet. Lo ira ra ki ata imadi. Shivtecha mishantecha hema yenachamuni. Ta'aroch lefanai shulchan neged sororai. Shanta b'shemen roshiko siravaya. Ach tov v'chesed. Yirdafuni kol yamei chayai. Shavti b'veit Adonai le'orech yamim. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He maketh me to lie down in green pastures. He leadeth me beside the still waters. He restoreth my soul. Guideth me in straight paths for his name's sake. Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for thou art with me. Thy rod and thy staff, they comfort me. Thou preparest a table before me in the presence of mine enemies. Thou hast anointed my head with oil, my cup runneth over. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life. I shall dwell in the house of the Lord forever. Beloved family, dear friends, never easy to come to moments like this. Steve, I thank you for your uncharacteristic emotion. I'm trying to give you a compliment, so don't laugh it off. Your uncharacteristic emotion, because that's not like you. And I know that that your relationship was enhanced because of your relationship with Natalie. And it's important that we understand these moments. It's always hard to come to this time and to this place. I don't ever remember a time when it's been easy. Even when it's difficult. Even when someone dies after prolonged illness, it's still difficult to come to this time and to this place to bury those that have been a part of our lives. And while Natalie and Steve and David and Alyssa certainly knew her the best, and all the rest of us knew her very, very little. And some of us perhaps never even met her, but we do know that relationship. But it makes this difficult. And the question that we really do need to ask, especially during this time of COVID, when we are so few in number here, to ask, what is this moment about? I believe with all my heart and soul that moments like this are truly bittersweet moments. It's not always that way. Bitter because death has come. And it's hard, especially for you, Natalie. It's hard. And the day will come when all of this is going to be a part of who you become. But it's hard. And that's the bitterness about this moment. But there is sweetness to this moment as well. Because as you know, these last couple of months have been so very difficult. The sweetness is that she did not suffer for a long period of time. And I'm not talking about her own difficulties with life, because I want to talk about that in a moment. But it's important for us to recognize that there is sweetness to this moment as well. Because as most of us know, her end could have been very, very prolonged and very difficult and very painful. Not just physically, but emotionally as well. But moments like this also remind us of how very sacred life is. We are not just here to pay words of comfort to Natalie at this time of her sorrow. If that's the only reason for us being here, I think we have missed the point. The point is that we come here to recognize who she was in her highest moments of living. Not her difficult times, but her highest moments of living. We come here to recognize that our lives are always changed by those who go before us, no matter who they are, no matter how difficult they had it in life. Our lives can be changed. So we recognize that death has come as a friend to her. But in some ways, I hope, especially for you, Natalie, death will have come as a friend for you as well. Because you can place your sister's life in a perspective that you don't often get a chance to do. And so, yes, we're here to give comfort. But I think we're also here ourselves to learn something about who she was and what it is that she tried to do in those highest moments. Even when life does not go as we would like, people have something to give to this world. And today is about not what she did. It's not about her biography. It's about who she was. What kind of person was she? In spite of it all, what sort of shines through about what Roselyn tried to be in those higher moments? And so today is not about what she did. Today is about who she was and what we can be because of her. We did not know her well, none of us, except for Natalie. But there are parts of her life that inspire. I was thinking about this, obviously, last night when we talked, but I was also thinking about this today. First of all, if she really understood who she was, she would not want us to define her by that. She would want us to define her by what she tried to become, in spite of the problems that she had to deal with. And so, how did she do that? She was, in so many ways, a very caring person. You know, years and years ago, the Temple Sisterhood used to do Braille. And there were people in the Temple Sisterhood who were Braillers. And I talked with them. I remember this 50 years ago. And I remember talking with them about that and how difficult that task was and how it had to be done in such a way that the people who were going to read what they brailled would understand it. She was a Brailler. It wasn't like, give me where the dots go and I will put them. That isn't what she did. In some ways, you told me last night, she was a perfectionist. She wanted things to be right. And brailing is one of those arts that she was involved in, and she wanted it to be right. And she didn't just do Braille recently. She's been doing it for a long time. And maybe she came to it because of her husband, who was blind. And maybe she came to it for other reasons. But she understood that her work could affect other people. So she took it seriously. And she didn't do it just for a couple of years. She did it for many years. And I think she was proud of that because she served those who felt perhaps that they were abandoned. She was caring in other ways. I have to tell you that in all the years that I've been doing this stuff, okay, and it's been a long time, as you guys know. In all these years I've been doing this stuff, I've never heard something that you told me last night about your sister. Never heard it before. Well, I don't want to forget about this. She was the kind of person who did care about other people. And I have never yet heard of somebody who was as alone as she was for most of her life, who cared enough about other people to put them and make sure that they were taken care of with her limited means. And I'm not joking about that. I never heard of that before. For those of you who don't know, She took out some life insurance policies with her limited funds to take care of some of her friends. Unheard of. Why? Because of the kind of person she was. She cared about those people. And she wanted to utilize whatever abilities she had to make sure that they were cared for. Not because she was going to get anything out of it, but because she was going to give something of herself to somebody else. She worked for kids and with kids. That's important because perhaps they understood, perhaps better than the rest of us, about who she was and how she could make a difference. She was set on being independent. And if there was any friction between the two of you, I would suggest it wasn't only Steve. I mean, Steve was part of it. If there was any friction between the two of you, it had to do with her fact that she wanted that independence. She wanted to be seen as an independent person, to handle her own affairs. And maybe when she took out those life insurance policy, it was a way of saying to you, I'm doing something on my own that I wanted to do. I think it's wonderful to remember that. She wanted to give things to others out of respect, out of requests that she gave to them. She didn't ask for help. And yes, you were there for her when she needed you. Whether she wanted that or not is not the issue. You were there for her, but she was not a person who was readily aware to get help if she needed it. But you were there, both of you, all four of you. And it's important for you to remember that. So I think that it's important for us to remember that she had some significant parts of her life. That's what we should focus on, not focus on the difficult parts. You know, I know over the years that that people who struggle, as she did, on the spectrum, whatever that means, they struggle, but they try. And I want us to focus on the trying that she leaves behind. Because if we would do a little of that ourselves, we would be better people. We would always be able to look back and say, I remember what she did. And if we would do just a little bit of something because of that, we will give her that immortality that I believe she richly deserves. And so to you, her beloved family, small though you are, and to those of us who are here to support you at this time, we hope and pray that you will find strength in her memory and how she tried to live her life in those highest moments. And that you will take from those memories, keep her alive by living as she tried to live in those moments of her life. I want to end with these words, which I've used so very often, but I think they're so very appropriate at this time. A little poem. Poet wrote, when I die, if you need to weep, cry for someone walking the street beside you. And I think in some ways that's what she tried to do. And when you need me, put your arms around others and give them what you need to give me. You can love me most by sharing your joys and multiplying your good deeds. You can love me most by letting me live in your eyes and not in your mind. And when you say Kaddish for me, remember what our tradition teaches. Love doesn't die. People do. So when all that's left of me is love, give me away. I believe that whether Roz was observant or non-observant, that's not important. But I believe that she will say that to you. Don't forget to give who I was away to others. So that will keep me alive. It is in that spirit then that we resolve to face our grief without self-pity, bravery and integrity, keeping before us forever the blessings that God conferred upon us. This life that He but lent to us. For these decades to few. In a world where our most precious goods are perishable, let us resolve to honor our beloved dead by being so good to the living, so kindly, so understanding, so forgiving, so transcendent to pettiness. In our love for her, we shall hearken to those who remain, who lead us in our strength. May it be through new relationships and new service to humanity that we make good our loss. In the beauty of our own lives, erect the noblest monuments to our mourned dead. Thus, the beauty of her life shall ever abide among us all as a living, loving benediction. Adonai Natan, Adonai Lakach. Shem Adonai Mevarach Me'atav Yad Olam. God has given. God has taken away. Praise be the name of God now, forevermore, and let us all say together. Amen. Rising of the sun and in its going down, we will remember her. In the blowing of the wind and in the chill of winter, we will remember her. In the opening of buds and in the rebirth of spring, we will remember her. In the rustling of leaves and in the beauty of autumn, we will remember her. In the blueness of the sky and in the heat of the summer, we will remember her. In the beginning of the year and when it ends, we will remember her. We are weary and in need of strength. We will remember her. We are lost and sick at heart. We will remember her. When we have joys we yearn to share, we will remember her. When we have decisions that are difficult to make, we will remember her. When we have achievements based on hers, we will remember her. So long as we live, she too shall live. She now is a part of us. We will remember her. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher yatzar etchem b'tzalmo v'zanchel etchem b'tovo, v'himit etchem badin v'natah b'tochechem che'elam. Baruch atah Adonai dayan ha'emet. We praise you, O Lord our God, ruler of the universe, who forms us in the divine image, who nourishes and sustains us in your goodness, causing all of us to die. Plant an immortal life within us. We praise you, O God, Judge of truth. Takibor le'olam Adonai Rav le'oshia mechalkel chayim b'chesed v'chayei hakol b'rachamim rabim somech naflim b'rofei cholim u'matir asumim. Eternal is your might, O God. All life is your gift. Great is your power to save. Love you sustain the living with great compassion. You give life to all. Send help to the fallen and healing to the sick. You bring freedom to the captive and keep faith with those who sleep in the dust. Praise you, O God, who implants eternal life in us. Bless the Lord, bless the Lord. Praise the Lord, to declare the earth thou shalt return. Spirit of God, Spirit of God. Most of you know that in our tradition it is an act of love and kindness to bury the dead. In this cemetery, we're not usually able to participate in that mitzvah. But given the fact that we're just a few in number, those of you who would like to help, please feel free to come forward and let the family come first. Oh. The dust returns to the earth as it was. Spirit returns to God who gave it. It is only the house of the Spirit which we have laid within the bosom of the earth. Spirit itself cannot die, for here too our dear ones continue in the loving remembrance of those to whom they were precious. Receive in mercy, O God, the soul of our beloved Roselyn and Agosto. Grant her that everlasting peace which you have prepared for us in the world to come. Though no human eye has seen, nor ear has heard, nor mind has compassed it, still our sure inheritance and our everlasting portion, now and forevermore. I would ask you now, dear family and friends, to please rise, that we might recite together the words that have been hallowed by centuries of faith, the words that have been glorified in our tradition, the words Yitkadal, Yitkadash, Shmerava, the Almighty Brach Hirute, Yamich Malchute, Chaye Chom V'Yomechom, Chaye B'Chol Beit Yisrael, V'Agalahu B'Zman Kori V'Yimru Amen, Yehei Shemei Rabon V'Orach, Le'olam U'Le'olmei Olmaya, Yitbarach V'Yishtabach, Yitba'ar V'Yitramam V'Yitnaseh, V'Yitadar V'Yitalev V'Yitalal, Shmei D'Kudsha V'Richu, Le'ela Min Kol Birchata V'Shirata, Tushbechata V'Nechemata, V'Amiran V'Yolma V'Yimeru Amen. Yehei Shalom Araba Min Shemaya V'Chayim, Aleinu v'al kol Yisrael. Imru Amen. Say shalom b'namon. Hu ya'aseh shalom. Aleinu v'al kol Yisrael. Yom Rachamim Shochem B'Amon. Hametzei Menucha Nechonu Tachat Kanpei HaShechina. Min Kedoshim Tahori Zohar Harakim HaSivim. Et Nishmat Chana Reza. Bat Tzvi Hirsch Ve'Esther. Sh'halacha L'Olamah. Bal HaRachamim. Yastireha B'Setu K'nafav L'Olamim. Vayitzvor B'Tzvor HaChaim Et Nishmatan. Yimai Hu Nechalotav V'Tanuach B'Shalom. Al Mishkavav V'Nomar Amen. God, full of compassion, eternal spirit of the universe, grant perfect rest in your sheltering presence into Roselyn and Agosto, who enter into eternity. God of mercy, let her find refuge in your eternal presence. Let her soul be bound up in the bond of eternal life. Be thou her possession. Close. Friends, family wants you to know that all of us who are here, like to invite you back to Steve and Natalie. So we can share our own thoughts with Natalie and give her some comfort. And of course, she has gone out of her way to make a very huge meal. At any rate, you're all invited to come back there. Part of whom we now remember has been called unto the peace of life eternal. She shall still live on earth in the acts of goodness she has performed. In the hearts of those who will ever cherish her memory, pray that the beauty of her life will ever abide among us all. It's a living, not the benediction. The source of peace. Send to all you who mourn. May God comfort all that believe among us and in Israel, and all the nations and the families of earth. So let's sit together. Lastly, go your way, for God has called you. Lech Adonai Yimach, go your way and be brought to you. Vach lefanecha tzidkecha, Od Adonai Yasvecha. Your righteousness go before you. Glory of God to see. All sit together.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you. That does conclude our service.